And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Series. This one comes us from Zombie Dragon. Sorry, I didn't get to it Thursday like I normally do. It's been a little hectic. Not anything has really changed. Just things come up, things happen, but I'm doing it, getting it out, making sure everyone is heard. This one, like I said, comes to us from Zombie Dragon, who asks, what is Danny Phantom, aka Danny Phantom's Zanpakuto? Now, when I first designed this Zanpakuto for Danny Phantom, it was one of those things where I designed it as a melee Zanpakuto with a Keto-esque ability, very similar to someone like Ichigo. Because Danny, I think, strikes me as someone who is not a very Keto-set. He's not someone who you would immediately think Keto. Yeah, he's got his ghost abilities, but we're not translating his abilities into a Zanpakuto. We're looking at what a Zanpakuto for him would look like based on who he is as a person. But when I thought on it more and thought about who Danny actually is, I realized there is a way we can create a Keto type Zanpakuto, but not in a traditional sense. So first and foremost, yes, it is more or less a Keto type you would have. Sealed wise, it's a standard katana. Most of them are standard katanas. But its release would be split and merge. Now, the name of it is Flexing Wolf Pups, or Furakasu Okame no Nanu, I think it is. And then the Bankai is True Moon Wolves, which is Shinsuke Okame. The spirits obviously would be two wolves, but they would be wolves that are a little different. In Shikai, they are young wolves, adolescent wolves. In Bankai, they are adult wolves. But why two wolves? Well, this actually goes to the fact that Danny is no longer straight out human. He is half ghost. His soul is split, technically. So his Zanpakuto would actually make sense in being a dual-type Zanpakuto. So, that said, what would the form of this Zanpakuto be? Well, in my opinion, it would take the form of basically two almost lances. They're not true lances. The handle would be a bit longer than your standard handle, and the blade would be a bit longer than the handle itself. So it would basically be two elongated daggers, almost like the length of a wakizashi with a long handle, kind of like that. A longer handle than a standard sword handle, but not longer than the blade. But the pommel, the end of the handle, would each have half of a yin-yang sign on them. So one would have the yin symbol, I believe yin is the white one, and one would have the yang symbol, the black symbol. Now, this is important not because of the Shikai, but because of the Bankai. But more importantly, what does the Zanpakuto do? For me, I had to think on that for a little bit. At first, I'm like, okay, I think it's just going to be a melee type with a Keto-esque ability like Getsuka Tenjo or something like that. But when I thought about it and the more I was working, I'm like, no, because of who Danny is. Danny is a guy who's very emotional. He is because he's a teen. But I think this is honestly a character trope he would have throughout his life. He kind of lets his emotions get the better of him. He reacts with fear, with sorrow, with anger, with rage, with happiness. He is all over the place with his emotions. And par for the course, he's a teen. But again, I feel like when you really look at this character, this is probably how he would be even as an adult. And because his emotions really control him, I like the idea of the Zanpakuto's ability dependent on his emotion. Now, when I say its ability, I don't mean necessarily, okay, he can teleport now because he's angry, and he can create light beams because he's happy. I don't necessarily mean that, but I'm saying the power and what his Zanpakuto is necessarily capable of doing is dependent on how he feels. Now, in Shikai, it really is just anger and happiness. The left side controls anger, the right side controls happiness. And I imagine that it would basically be his happiness allows him to recover a bit faster, basically do like a healing blast or something like that, and his anger allows him to fire off powerful blasts. However, that may sound a little like, really? Well, great. He has to be angry to use one ability and happy to use the other. If he's angry, he can't use the other. Nay. What I think, this is where the yin-yang comes in. His Zanpakuto is actually truly about trying to balance both sides of his life, the ghost side and the human side. So, all of his abilities in Bankai, Shikai and Bankai, and we'll obviously talk Bankai a little bit, are all available to him. But depending on where his emotions are, if he's angry, like if he's like furious, he may still be able to use the happy part of his blade, the right side of his blade, but it's going to be very minimal in terms of power. Whereas his anger is going to, whereas his left side is going to be extremely powerful for an attack. Vice versa, if he's actually happy, confident, all that, not really feeling anger, the power of his left blade is not going to, the power of his attacking side is not going to be that powerful, but his ability to heal himself or others is going to be boosted. This leads into the Bankai now, Shinsuke Okame, where basically he slams the two pummels together to create a full yang, or two symbols together to create a full yin-yang, Bankai, and it turns into a much longer, similar to what I kind of did with Naruto's Bankai, where it's a large, like, staffed spear almost, but unlike Naruto's, it's more just, it's like a double-bladed Nagata, with a wolf head hilt on both sides. And, his abilities now are fully tied to his emotions, or his emotions are fully realized. Basically, unlike before where he can only use one of his abilities per blade, now he has access to all of them, and he can simultaneously use two at once. And he gets to choose between them. Now, that said, this, I think, would also now encompass more of his emotional spectrum. You still have happiness and anger, which are still power and healing. A powerful blast with anger, healing with happiness. But then you would also add, I think, fear and sadness at least in there. Because I can't really think of, like, greed or love or anything. Well, love you could probably throw in there, but I don't know. I couldn't think of anything to represent love. But with fear, it would be more of like an acidic energy, not necessarily powerful, but not something you want to touch exactly. So it'd be slant, and because it's like Bleach, Soul Society, all that, it would like act almost like a liquid energy. So it basically like adheres to the opponent and starts to burn. And the more fear he's feeling, the stronger it is. And remember, this is not like Lantern Course where he's got to instill fear in others. No. This is the fear he's feeling. This is his emotions. Conversely, though, if he's just sorrowful, mournful, sad, it's not really amping. His Zanpakuto will not amp him or have an ability for that per se, but it will actually just amp his physical capabilities of defending himself. His speed, his actual ability to take a hit will all be enhanced. And likewise, as I said with the Shikai, it's all in balance. So he is capable of using all of these at once, and wherever his emotions lie, apart from the the jacked up Ryatsu, that's where they're going to land in terms of how powerful each ability is. Now, obviously, while this would be a very cool and unique Zanpakuto, there's not really anything like it. I did something similar with Madara's Zanpakuto, where it was dependent on the phases of the moon. But Shunsumi, I think, would maybe be the closest, because it is kind of dealing with his emotions to some degree. But obviously, this Zanpakuto has a big weakness in that it's all dependent on emotions. If Danny's emotions are not in the right state, he could be at a severe disadvantage against his opponent. Furthermore, like the swords themselves, like in terms of just straight combat, the swords themselves are fine in terms of combat, but if he were to go up against someone who's a heavy hitter in terms of melee combat, be it an Ichigo, a Kenpachi, whatever, he'd be down. There's nothing he can do about that in terms of straight melee combat. There's a reason this is a Kido type Zanpakuto, because it's not a physical Zanpakuto. And Danny's, to be fair, isn't that physical of a fighter. Yeah, he's a physical brawler, but if he can think his way out of a scenario, he'll do it. But ultimately, I like this concept for Danny. It works well with everything we ever saw in the show. So I don't know. What do you think of this type of Zanpakuto for Danny? Would you agree with this Zanpakuto, or would you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you for the next one. I've got to pre-record my what if for tomorrow, and I'll see you later.